Hello friends, John here. I'm glad you could stop by. Have the Marvel superhero movies reached their peak in quality? Have they surpassed their peak in quality? Are they going downhill? Have they just started or have they been going downhill for a while in quality? If you believe there has been a drastic drop in quality, do you think it's going to lead to a drop in quantity? And if so, how big and when is it going to happen? I have been wondering for some time when the superhero genre in general was going to decrease in number. What convinced me to finally do this topic were some statements I saw by Chris Gore on a Neurotic Nooner episode recently, where he said he thought Marvel should discontinue doing superhero movies after 10 years and give it a hiatus of several years. So fans were clamoring to have the movies come back. He claimed that he thought a decade was sort of a sweet spot where the quality would decline after that period. He claimed within that period, in the beginning, people would be very passionate, focused, super motivated as the period began. And as time went on, they would lose their hunger to excel as other things took over their interest. Say they met somebody on set, they got married, or if they're already married, they had kids, they got some money now, they want to fix up their house. So as the time went on, they'd get less and less devoted to the project. He used some examples. He was talking about Marvel, but then he said Star Wars, The Walking Dead, and then he started talking about Game of Thrones. He sort of got interrupted by other people, but he used those as examples of things after a period of time that went into a decline. I agree with some of the points he was making, but I disagree with others. And that's one reason I wanted to do this talk. I certainly agree as time goes on, people get other priorities or lose interest, don't have the energy they once had. The Star Wars that he gave an example, I would agree. Like George Lucas, as time went on, he got older, he didn't have the drive and the energy to want to focus on it, indicated by him selling it. If he really loved it and he really had some projects in mind that he really wanted to get done the way he wanted, he wouldn't have sold it. And once you sell it, even if you make suggestions, there's no guarantee they're going to do what they wanted. Certainly actors, as time go on, often lose interest in a project. Many times the actor comes in and they're not well known, or perhaps they are well known and as good actors, but they had problems. Robert Downey Jr., I think he had drug problems or whatever. So they get a project and they don't get a whole lot of money. But as they succeed in the project, become successful in succeeding seasons, they can demand more money or succeeding movies. And after a while, they get financial security. They get famous that they do have money-making capabilities, opportunity, different projects. They're getting bored doing the same thing. They want to stretch their acting chops and that kind of thing. Or like Andrew Lincoln, you're working away from home. It's a pain in the ass because he lived far away from wherever he was filming. Other actors who played Michonne, Maggie, they had other opportunities for other stuff and wanted to leave. You have major characters like that leaving, that affects the series. A flaw in what Chris Gore was saying and where I disagree with him, he was saying as if the crew, after all this time, as if everybody remains the same working on a project. Let's take The Walking Dead, for instance. Frank Darabont was the one that saw the potential of it and had a great vision of things he wanted to do with it. He created it. He brought actors that he'd worked with in films that liked working with him, and he knew how they could work, and they were relaxed together, and they worked real well together. He convinced them to come over, and he did a fantastic first season, drawing a lot of audience in. But AMC stuck their nose in my opinion, were greedy, like to squeeze every little cent out of it they can, didn't care about the plot or the story or the love of the project. They, like I said, want every last hour. They were even saying, well, can't you just have zombies off screen? You just hear them. You don't have to see them because it costs so much for the makeup and all. You can just have people doing voices off screen and save a lot of money. And eventually they forced Frank Darabont out. They got a number of different people over the years replacing him, but did they come in because they loved the potential of the project, or they just come in for a job? So that's where I think he's wrong too, is as people aren't all the same over time. Other people taking over other projects, say that bought Star Wars from George Lucas. Were they driven by love because they saw the series when they were young and they love it? Like, I think I can do so much with this. It has so much potential. Or did they do the old I call it the bait and switch. Here's a project that has an audience that loves it. I've got, maybe not story, but an agenda, a message. What the critical drinker says, the message. And here I can put it in this project, and I got all this audience coming over. So I can bait and switch. They think they're going to see something, and they're going to see something else. The perfect example or evidence of that is Rings of Power, where they even had a Tolkien expert in it. Loved Tolkien. That's how he became an expert, studying it and remembering it all and being nerdy all about it. Well, they kicked him off the project. Well, he kept insisting, hey, why don't you put some Tolkien in there? It's a Tolkien thing. Why don't you put some in there? No, we don't. We're getting too much. We don't want any Tolkien in. We want the story that he didn't tell. Well, why'd you spend all this money on it? Bait and switch. Well, we can tell a better story than him. Well, why didn't you make up your own story from scratch? Similar could be say with the Star Wars. I don't think they were. We want the new characters. It's similar to what Gary Neurotic says about the Marvel MCU. Okay, we want Star Wars. We want a feminine hero. They have this idea to build somebody up. You have to tear them down. So we got to tear Luke Skywalker down to build up Rey. You can't just have Rey and have her learn from Luke and then overcome obstacles. No. She knows everything from the start. She's a Mary Sue. It's like they don't understand going through obstacles and having flaws that you overcome makes an interesting story. But no. We got to tear the old character down to build up the new. So they have Luke slobbering milk all over his beard and drinking out of the animal's tit directly. Like, come on. But you could see from the interviews, if you watched Mark Hamill, that he was very depressed, disappointed. He even was saying in one of them, like, well, I made these suggestions, and the dang producer, director, whatever the heck his name is, like, well, it's my story. And like, yeah, I know it was your story. And like, but Luke wouldn't have done those things. That's not the way he was. I don't care. It's my story. And I told it, yeah, well, you're right. But he was depressed. You could tell it, like, the way his character was destroyed. He loved the character. He came back envisioning that they were going to respect and love the character, and they didn't. You could see it. Go watch some of those videos and you'll see. So Chris Gore was saying people like James Gunn that did a real good jobs on the Marvel things they work on are leaving. So, then there goes the 10-year period. But if you replaced them with, again, somebody that loved the comics when they were young, or a specific comic in general, say you found somebody that liked the Fantastic Four, they loved them, they respected the way they were in the comic, you could make films, and it wouldn't matter that it was 10 years. Well, what Marvel did with the movies starting way back when Iron Man and working their way up gradually was amazing, adding characters gradually. When it started, I didn't even know what they were working towards, building the character, gradually putting them together as a team, then putting other characters other than the Avengers and everything, and then just meeting Thanos. It was just amazing how they built over the years. After the Avengers Endgame, I really didn't like any of the movies. I guess Spider-Man had a good one, but they got into what Gary Neurotic again was calling the MCU. So they went in with an agenda. The movies, the television shows, again, tearing down characters. Loki, he wasn't the same personality in the comics or even in the earlier films. They got to make him, the male one, humiliated by the woman she knew everything, even as a kid. A little kid, she figured out all this stuff with no help or anything. She's just so smart. And earlier Marvel TV shows that were on Netflix, I like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher. They were back in the older things. And you could have a superwoman, Jessica Jones. I liked her a lot. She had issues and problems that she had to work with, too. She wasn't a Mary Sue. When Disney started the Marvel TV shows, I started watching them. WandaVision, I gave them credit for trying something different in the beginning, but they really didn't implement it very well. So overall, I didn't like that series. Then it went to Falcon and Winter Soldier. I didn't like that. Too much agenda put into it, just ruined it. The Loki, as I was saying, I didn't like that. Character was so much different. I didn't like the plot. My sister and I started watching Moon Knight. And I forget how many episodes we watched. We watch an episode a week. I have dinner with her. We got to a certain week and it wasn't like, what are we going to watch tonight that's interesting? Neither one of us said anything about Moon Knight. Like, we got to finish this. I wonder what's going to happen. We got a number of episodes to watch. It's exciting. I got to see what happens next. No discussion at all. Nobody brought it up. I think each of us is thinking, I hope the other guy doesn't want to watch it because that was boring. You fall asleep, boring. No. So not even a discussion about it. I think that indicates how bad it was. Didn't watch Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, the She-Hulk. Watched reviews, and I saw from the reviews I would not be interested in them. Overall, all the TV shows, my opinion, then they were low quality. It's a combination of the agenda and they're pumping it out real fast. Also, they get writers with what kind of experience? Certainly none with the comic books. I do agree with Chris Gore's idea that maybe you should have a hiatus of a while. It doesn't have to be years. It doesn't have to be entirely no superhero movies, one or two. Maybe ones that aren't interconnected, that don't have no vision to connect it together to build and add and build and add. Just have, even if you have one, that you have one in a sequel planned or a trilogy of a certain Fantastic Four or something. You could have something minor planned out. It doesn't have to lead to bigger and bigger things, and just focus on that with somebody that really loves Fantastic Four. When I was a kid, I noticed on television that a certain genre would raise in predominance above others for a period of time and then go back down, and then another one would raise up. When I was very, very young, Westerns were way up there from the 50s into the 60s. Actually, they went back into the 40s on films and radio, but they lasted a long time when I was a kid, and there were many, many more. The other genres were still there. Situation comedies, a police show, whatever, sci-fi. They were down along a baseline, but the Westerns were way, way up in number. Way, way up in number. Why? I don't know. Come the 70s, they plummeted drastically. And when they fell way below the baseline. They never really came back up. They didn't disappear entirely, but even to today, TV and films, they never came up to similar to other things like situation comedies or whatever. They plummeted and they fell down and stayed below. Then other things rose up. They never rose to the same level as Westerns. There were police and detective shows. They go up, and then they would come down. Something else would go up. Medical and doctor shows and lawyer shows. Those other shows, they never went as high as the Westerns, and they didn't fall as far. They just stayed back down. And why certain things went in and out, I don't know. But I think part of it is oversaturation. People got tired of Westerns. God, Westerns, there were three channels, and sometimes every channel would have a Western on. Half-hour Western, hour Westerns. Hundreds and hundreds over that period of Westerns. Like, I'm tired of Westerns. And I don't know. That's got me to thinking, will that happen in comic book stuff? Whatever gets so bad that people just get tired of them in general? That's what I'm asking you as an audience. You think so? Or will they drop down and just stay at a very low level? Or are they here to stay? So what do you think? Put your comments. I'd like to see them. Thanks for stopping by.